Hello, it's Gene Tunney here. This is Economics Explored live for Friday, 10th of December 2021, and I'm joined by my regular co-host, Tim Hughes. Tim, good to be chatting with you again.
Morning, Gene. Good to be here.
Excellent, Tim. Again, as always, we're going to be speaking about the big economic issues of the week, at least the big issues as I perceive them. So if you're happy to chat along those lines, that'd be great.
Let's go.
Excellent. So, Tim, I thought today what we could speak about is the new fertility data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which shows a drop in the fertility rate, so number of babies being born, and that is similar to what we've seen in the US and the UK. So we've seen it in Australia too during the pandemic. So let's have a look at some slides. Okay, so Tim, I'm showing you the number of registered births in Australia, and that's a great time series from the ABS. And
yeah, right.
This shows, what happens if you do collect all these data over the years with births, deaths, and marriages. We've got data back to 1932. That's probably one of the years Farlap was racing. So back quite a long time ago.
It was some time ago, yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting seeing that. So I wonder what happened in 1972.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, that's when the number of births really started declining. That's around the mid-70s. That's when I was born, in that time period. And there was a bit of a... Well, yeah. I mean, we had very high fertility in the 60s, and then it did drop off a bit. So that's registered births in Australia, and that fell in 2020. That declined by 11,363 compared with the year before. So it's fallen below 300,000 births per annum, and so that's due to COVID, right? So
it could have gone either way, couldn't it, really? I mean, less work, more people at home, less things to do. If it wasn't for Netflix, we'd probably see that reversed.
Oh, well, I don't know. I guess there's so much uncertainty. And also people aren't going out. So this is what you see in the States. So in the US data, well, you see a drop in fertility or births to very young mothers, so to teenage mothers, and that's potentially because people have been locked down and you're having less socialising.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah. But look, yes, you're thinking of the blackout scenario, aren't you? I mean, there is that phenomenon.
I'm being a little bit glib. But
yeah, I think you're being a bit glib.
I mean, I think it was more of a thing like in the early 70s, I know in the UK, with blackouts and things like that. Apparently there was a spike. I don't know if that's an urban myth or not.
Oh, no, that's true. I think they do see that. I think you've seen that in blackouts in places like New York. And, yeah.
This is interesting, though, in the way that, like, we've talked about this before, with the expected leveling out of the increase in the global population. And so currently we're about 8 billion, is that right?
Globally, yeah.
And so it's expected to level out at 10 billion in 2050 and only another billion, like to 11 billion by what are we going to call
2100. Yeah.
So up until another 2 billion by 2050 and then a further 1 billion by 2100. So it's very much a leveling out, and that's down to the population growth rate, and the magic number is 1. Is that right? So less than 1, you have a decline in population.
I think don't you mean 2 for fertility rate? Essentially you want every... I think you're getting. Yeah. It's definitely 2 because
that's why you're here, Gene. That's why it's not.
I think you're thinking of a benefit cost ratio, Tim.
There you go.
The magic number for population is 2 for the fertility rate because you want. Let's look at the fertility rate, and then this conversation will make more sense. Right, so that's a chart of Australia's total fertility rate. Okay, so this is the number of children ever born per woman, okay? So you actually want that above 2, okay? Because and then essentially each couple replaces itself. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay.
Right.
So so the magic number is 2.
In fact, you want it to be a bit above 2 to make up for the fact that there's some mortality, infant mortality.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, a bit over 2. But we haven't been over 2 in Australia since the 70s, right? Oh, actually, we got above just for a tiny period in the mid to late 2000s.
So was it Peter Costello?
Yeah, the baby boom, the baby bonus.
One for your partner and then one for the country.
Yeah, and he stole that from Winston Churchill.
Gee.
When Churchill was Home Secretary, I think it was, he wanted people to have 4 children because it was one for mum, one for dad, one for accident and one for the country, because you had to have one to make up for the infant mortality.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Peter Costello,
which was clearly higher in.
It's quite extraordinary. I mean, you generally. I mean, I'm generally sceptical about the impacts of policy on any sort of variables, any target variables. But you can make a case that baby bonus policy, which, I mean, you may question the wisdom of the $5,000 or whatever it was being spent, but it possibly did have an impact on the fertility rate.
Maybe, but at the end of the day, I think it's great when it's just down to people's choice. We saw the one baby policy in China, which of course is a different ballgame altogether and far more imposed on society. There's nothing like that in any Western country. So this is a natural sort of process where it's just as the wealth of the country rises, the population rate drops, which I was surprised at. I could quite easily have been convinced that it could go the other way around. No,
this is a well-observed phenomenon. It's called the demographic transition.
I thought so.
So countries make a demographic transition as they become wealthier, and that's for a variety. Well, I think it's for a couple of reasons at least. One reason is that in poorer countries where you don't have a social security system, your children are your social security system for a family, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the children who will look after the aging parents.
Yep.
As you get wealthier, then that's less of a concern. There's an aged pension and people have savings, and so they don't need as many children. You'll have people making lifestyle choices not to have children. Also contraception too.
It's interesting though, because that's
education.
That's part of a social contribution as well, though, with families under that older sort of way of doing things, where having more kids and sort of like being looked after in your older age sort of thing. There's a bit more of a continuum there within the social fabric in a family environment, and so in some ways it's a more social sort of way to be. Interestingly, I guess, if so I wonder if there's like a bliss point of national wealth where you actually get to have a happier society through those kind of implications, of people staying around their families a little bit more. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, we're wealthy enough we could choose to have more children if we wanted to, but there'd be people that are collectively choosing not to have as many children as they once did.
Yeah.
And I guess there are a few things underlying this, okay? I mean, there are some women and some couples who they won't have any children at all. And I think we've got more of those than ever before.
Yeah.
More people are just deciding, no, I don't want to have children because it's just going to interfere with my lifestyle. Or some people might make that decision because, well, we're concerned about the environment, and there are plenty of people being born in emerging economies or in sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East or Asia. So why should we, bring someone else into the world and then have a Western lifestyle where we're polluting and all of that and using all of these resources. So there may be some people who are legitimately concerned, and that they make a conscious choice not to have children.
And also, I was going to say that this actually fits in with. So they've got the population growth and wages. UBI was mentioned not so long ago. I guess that could affect this kind of thing as well. But immigration is the big one. This has always been the constant need for immigration, isn't it? Because of like a declining population, local population.
Okay, so
growth. In
the long run, if you've got a fertility rate below 2, or more like below 2.1 or 2.05 or whatever it is, whatever that threshold is, you will have a declining population unless you've got net overseas migration.
Yeah.
Okay, because as the older generations die off, there are fewer people born to replace them.
Yeah.
So you need to have immigration to keep population growing, right? And so we've been very reliant upon that in Australia.
Yeah, and so I imagine that will continue.
Well, we're relying upon it for the future, into the future, yes. So that's kept our population growth rate relatively high compared with other advanced economies.
It also leads into, we've spoken before about with sustainable growth being a thing forever, and again with global population leveling out, sustainable contraction is going to be a thing, like where, how can you have a healthy business and not necessarily be expanding all the time, and we heard the other day somebody mentioned degrowth, which is the same principle, but it's that thing of like, how can you be okay not just ever expanding, what's a healthy
but we
model?
I don't think we have to think about that in Australia yet, because we'll still have a growing population. So if you look at all of the projections, assuming we kick off net overseas migration again post-COVID, and there's no reason for me to suspect we won't. Maybe it will be at a lower level than we've had in the past, because in this COVID period, it's allowed us to reflect upon that absorption issue with immigration. I mean, we've talked about how one of the surprising things with during COVID is that the unemployment rate in Australia ended up getting below 5%.
Yeah, right.
And, I mean, we haven't had that in, a long time. It was extraordinary. And, there were people forecasting it would increase quite a lot because of the pandemic. And a lot of it, or a big part of it, appears to have been the fact we don't have all of these people coming in from overseas into the labour force.
Yeah, so the work was taken up by locals.
And so I think that's made a lot of people think, okay, well, maybe we should think about, were we previously running immigration at too high a rate? And then you've got to think about what's the impact on your infrastructure, okay? So I think that's something, there's a debate to be had about that.
I mean, by the same token, though, there's a lot of work that's done by like backpackers and people moving around. And so I know at one point when that was taken away from the farmers, they really clamped down on people who were essentially overstaying their working holiday visa. The farmers were in a lot of trouble. They couldn't find enough people to pick the crops. So it's very much part of the, the whole community and that economy of getting these transient workers moving through as on a temporary basis. So it'd be interesting to know how they've been missed, actually, and if there have been enough people to do all those jobs.
Well, I don't think they have. There have been. I think that it's caused issues particularly in agriculture. I think it's caused some issues. I mean, some farmers haven't been able to find people to pick the fruit in some cases. So I think that actually has been an issue. Yeah. We'll have to find some examples and chat about it next time.
Cool.
But that's the total fertility rate. So record low, so it's down to 1.58, and I think that's pretty much what it got down to in the UK. It's a bit higher in the US because the US has that big Hispanic population which has high fertility.
Okay.
But there was a story earlier this year in the evening. This is the Evening Standard I'm reading from. Fertility rate in England and Wales falls to lowest level on record. The rate fell to 1.58 children per woman in 2020, and that's the same fertility rate that we recorded in Australia. So
comparable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Right, so that's total fertility rate. I also had a chart there of the age-specific fertility rates, and they're showing that decline. It's showing a decline across all those age groups. What I find fascinating about age-specific fertility is just how there's been that big shift in when women typically have children. So we've gone from a situation where the age group with the highest fertility rate was either the 20 to 24 or 25 to 29 age group.
Yeah.
Now it's actually the 30 to 34-year-old age group. So these, if I remember correctly, these numbers here, which range from 0 to 250, that's the number of children born to women in that age group per 1,000 women in that age group that year.
Right, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That is interesting.
If that makes sense. I mean, just think about how many. I mean, just think about how many children were being born back in the early 60s, right? And that's when we had a total fertility rate of over 3. So that was a very productive time.
That was my time, Gene.
That was your time,
That was my time, mate.
Yeah, and I think that was all over the Western world. So yeah,
well, it's funny, like just by your own experience though as well, like you do notice that people in general are having babies later. You know, there's a lot of younger parents, certainly when I was a kid, and there's pros and cons with that, of course. You know, like so I had kids when I was older. I think I was 39 when we had our eldest, and so yeah, there's definitely advantages being. I don't think I would have been a very good parent at 20 years old. Let's just say that. Anyway, I digress. It's interesting.
Yeah, I just find that fascinating. So that's probably not directly. Well, I guess it's part of the whole data set. It's part of the story. I just wanted to flash that up because I thought you might be interested in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that's fertility. I thought that was that's a really big story that we've got that record low. I mean, who knows what will happen next? I mean, possibly we'll have a rebound as we come out of the pandemic. I expect we will. The problem, of course, is that there has been that downward trend in fertility for a while now. So maybe I should go back. Let's see. See, we see that it has been trending down. So this could be COVID could have caused an acceleration in that downward trend. I mean, COVID's caused an acceleration in a lot of trends in economy and society.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Resignation and things like that, where all of these things might have eventually happened. They've just been, they've happened in a far shorter period of time.
And look, there are some economies with much lower fertility rates than ours. I mean, we think, 1.58, that's an historic low. But if you look at Italy or Japan, I don't have the numbers on me, but I mean, I think I remember, I mean, you've got fertility rates either 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.4, so much lower. I mean, maybe in a future live stream, we'll put those fertility rates and international comparison up and we can chat about that.
Well, I guess at some point it would be interesting to see the global population curve and how that's gone, because that's obviously leveling out compared to what it has been. So in the last 100 years or so, there's obviously been some steep increases.
Yeah.
And we're clearly heading towards a leveling out on a global level.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see that too.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have a session on that. Okay. So that's fertility. There's the US chart there. So they're declining as well. Okay. What I wanted to chat about finally is crypto. And I mean, lots of news regarding crypto this week. There was a crypto wallet that collapsed here in Australia, wasn't there, Tim?
MyCryptoWallet.
MyCryptoWallet. So
I hadn't heard of it, which isn't unusual, I have to say.
But it just goes to show the big risk associated with crypto.
Yeah.
And there are these exchanges where they're providing a service and they're signing up people and they're saying we'll hold your crypto and we'll manage the market on your behalf. But it looks like these guys they weren't able to keep their promises or pay the bills they needed to, and they've fallen over. And it just goes to show just how challenging this whole crypto thing is, and how potentially there may be a case for greater regulation of crypto, and this is something that Josh Frydenberg, the Treasurer, is going to be looking at over the next 6 months or so. So there was a paper, and it's on the Treasury website, so www.treasury.gov.au, where I used to work, transforming Australia's payment system. I don't know if you saw that at all, Tim. No. But Josh Frydenberg has he's written that in relation to crypto, by mid-2022, the government will have completed consultation on the establishment of a licensing framework for digital currency exchanges to provide greater confidence in the trading of crypto assets. So it looks like the government is going to be looking at regulating crypto because it's concerned about people losing a lot of money potentially because everyone thinks crypto is so hot right now. But as we know, it's such a wild ride, okay, because you see just ridiculous changes in the value of crypto. It's a bit small, but that's a table that's been prepared by the macro bond people that I know. And that just shows how crazy some of these price increases have been. So we've got year-to-date price increases of over 10,000% for some of these crypto assets, right? So,
I mean, they seem to be because it's the Wild West, which we've mentioned before, and so a lot of them are coming up. A lot of them aren't going to survive. A lot of people will make money, and even more will lose money. So it's almost like a fancy way of putting a pyramid scheme up for a little while, even though the structure is a little different. The chances of getting a return are pretty much the same. The ones that will survive clearly will. People will do well, but the proliferation of new cryptocurrencies at the moment is a little bit like a .com boom, I guess, in comparison. And clearly a lot of them aren't going to be around next year, you know.
Yeah. I think the way to think about it is, I mean, some people are getting fabulously wealthy out of it, and I think it's essentially akin to gambling, really. It's you're really gambling, because I can't see any way to properly assess the value of any of these assets, and that's why I think, I mean, go if you want to gamble, then go right ahead. I mean, you may make plenty of money. I mean, I always just think with these things, okay, look, I know that potentially you could make a lot of money out of it. Knowing my luck, I'm probably not going to be the one who makes the money out of it, and you may not be either, right? So this is what Seth Godin always says about any sort of money-making scheme or business opportunity, right? I mean, some people might, they might make a lot of money out of it, or they could be fabulously successful, and they could become YouTube stars or podcasting stars, but that probably won't be you. And you've got to be happy with that. You've got to be comfortable with that.
Well, this is where the comparison to the pyramid schemes comes into it, because if you're the first ones on board with any of this stuff, the early adopters or the people who start it, they're the ones who get the benefit. And by the time it filters down to the umpteenth user down the track, it gets less and less likely that they're going to make anything from it. But and also we have to say that we're not giving any investment advice on this at all. This is just purely our opinion and from what we've heard or seen. And everybody that I have listened to talk about this say that you don't want to go into any of this expecting to make money. You can speculate, as you might do with anything else, but spreading it far and wide is possibly the way to go.
Yeah.
But just watch the space, because it's a really interesting time. NFTs, non-fungible tokens, all of this. So the big attraction is that it is decentralized, that it doesn't require governments to be involved, which is the incentive for so many people to be involved in this, and obviously a harder one for the authorities or the governments to rein in. So they may only have limited impact with all of this, because the way this is designed is that it can't be reined in, it can't be sort of controlled.
Well, there are multiple use cases for this cryptocurrency theoretically, and look, so maybe there's some value in a cryptocurrency to the extent that it helps you evade authorities. I mean that's why some people want it, because we think this can help us buy things off Silk Road or whatever it is, or off the dark net or whatever it is.
Yeah, the criminal element.
Definitely. Yeah, but government would want
market.
Yeah. But that's something government's going to want to crack down on.
But the flip side of that is that, like, there's the creative industry is doing really well. Like, so if you are an artist, for instance, this is better for you. You can have ownership of what you do and have control over it, more autonomy with cryptocurrency, with NFTs. So there's a lot of independence and a lot of good things that can come from it. And I guess it's that kind of thing, how much good can be done with this new technology.
So that's something,
be.
So we're talking about crypto. I mean, there are two things here. They're both dependent on the blockchain, but they're separate things, aren't they? I mean, there's a cryptocurrency and then there's a non-fungible token.
And
we might have to cover this in another live stream and get someone who's really expert on this to help us figure out what's going on. But from what I understand, I mean, they're separate things. So an NFT is something, it relies on the blockchain, and it proves that you own some sort of digital asset. And so it could be a digital artwork, or it could be a sword in an online game, or it could be an animal or a creature in an online game. So what is extraordinary, and I didn't know this until I got that chart from the macro bond people, and it shows all of these wide variety of cryptocurrencies and how much they've changed year to date. Now, incidentally, there are apparently over 10,000 cryptocurrencies. Can you believe it?
I can believe it.
Just shows what human ingenuity and a desire for a quick buck can achieve.
But the thing is, there's a land grab at the moment. So this is
Exactly.
There's a panic, and there's a FOMO, massive FOMO going out of like people thinking that this is where they could make their fortune, which drives the whole thing. So it's fear, greed, and panic, which is the same with our regular financial markets that we're all familiar with. It's the same things driving this. But ultimately, I think when the dust settles from this, I think it could be really interesting. And I'd like to believe, being the optimist that I am, that we could end up in what could be a better place for all of us with whatever this technology could do. Currently, the whole amount of energy that is taken through a transaction with this is Bitcoin. Completely ridiculous.
Mad.
And that in itself is enough to say this isn't going to work. This has to change. And apparently, people are working quite hard on that to make sure that that's a more efficient process. But otherwise, like if we end up like burning coal to mine Bitcoin or similar, that's a problem for all of us, whether we have cryptocurrency interests or not. So it's a very interesting space, and it's moving very, very quickly. And we will get someone else on to try and detangle this web.
I want to pick up on a couple of things. So this issue of you're saying, they're trying to get more efficient, okay, because they're using all of this power to mine Bitcoin, for example.
Yeah.
And there are hedge funds or there are investment firms that are buying up old coal-fired power stations in New York and places like New York State, so they could use them to power all of their computers to mine Bitcoin. Now, okay, sure, you could try and do that more efficiently, but then we'll probably just install more computers.
This is why we're the best-selling show for aliens. Check out these Earthlings. They're just working out how to get clean energy, and then they've found something invisible to use all their current energy to spend on it. So there's something that doesn't exist, and they're taking real power to run it. These guys are funny.
There's a paradox there. I think that might be. Is that the Jevons paradox? I have to look that up. But I think it's a paradox. Anyway,
in the words of David Bowie, it's the best-selling show.
The other thing I wanted to pick up on, you talked about a land grab.
Yes,
there is actually a land grab with crypto. People are using crypto to buy land in these digital worlds, in these online games, and it's just extraordinary. And so some of these cryptocurrencies, these ones that have gone up massively in value, so there's something called Axie, what is it? Is it Axie Infinity, which has gone up, is that 20,870?
Looks like it.
7%. I mean, just year to date. And that... With that, you can buy these little Axie creatures or these creatures in this online game. They're cute little things. It's like a Pokemon sort of thing. I mean, I don't fully understand it. And then there's this other one, Gala. And there's a cryptocurrency there, and you can use that in your Gala games, and you might be able to buy swords or things like that.
Is Timmy Coin up there?
I haven't. Timmy, is that one of yours, is it, Tim?
I've just started it, just saying.
No. But look, I mean, like I really don't understand any of this stuff, but there are people who, I mean, maybe there's a use case there and people value it for those reasons because, we can use it in this virtual world. And, okay, look, this is Dungeons and Dragons for the modern world, right? I mean...
It's really interesting. Like, it would be a bit of a side issue. But there were a lot of smart people involved in this. So for all of the turmoil that we see now, I do think that it will settle down and it will become something that eventually we'll all become familiar with and that will work. So this will certainly be regarded as the birth of this kind of prevalence of cryptocurrency on a global scale. So it certainly is moving fast.
Until there's a big crypto crash and people realize they actually need dollars to be able to buy goods and services they need to live, and everyone goes, and everyone finally realizes, why do we ever own any of that rubbish crypto currency?
To be fair,
that could happen. I'm not forecasting it at this stage, but that's a possibility.
Isn't this a parallel universe with what our current financial market is anyway? Like, we got bits of paper saying, I promise,
there's more of a basis for the value there, because if it's the government that has issued a bond, then we know the government's probably good for it because the government can tax us.
Yeah.
Or if it's a company that's issued a bond, or if it's a share of a company, we know we're not going to lose all. In some circumstances you could lose all of your money with the share, but generally there are assets in that company, right, that back that security.
It's moving fast, and we will get somebody on. I'll speak to Dave. I've spoken to him before about coming on to the podcast. I've heard this described or mentioned or explained several times, and each time you're left scratching your head just that little bit, because it's not straightforward, which I guess is its strength. It takes all these computations, all these calculations to be decentralized. Otherwise, it would be controlled in a different beast.
Well, I guess I can see some value for people who are participating in these online games. I can see the use case, and okay, I can sort of understand that. It's not something I'd be involved in, but okay. There could be people who really get pleasure out of these games, and they need this cryptocurrency to participate in that online world. Okay, fair enough. Axie Infinity. Axie is an NFT-based online video game developed by Vietnamese studio Sky Mavis, which uses Ethereum-based cryptocurrencies, Axie Infinity shards, and Smooth Love Potion. I'm lost already.
Axie, what was that last bit?
Smooth Love Potion. Axie Infinity is a digital pet universe where players battle, raise, and trade fantasy creatures called Axies. We've got to check this out.
So the Earth TV show ratings have just gone sky high. That just says it all.
Oh, extraordinary.
I do believe that there is something from this that will come out that will be adopted in some way, some form or fashion. So it's going to be very interesting.
It's all early days, yeah.
I'm just going to mention here, because with the MyCryptoWallet going under, so it's the second one in 2 months to go under.
Yeah.
Which seems fascinating. You wonder how, with this growing market, obviously it's volatile, but even so, with the wallets, I don't understand how they go under as such, or these MyCryptoWallet. But the Reserve Bank boss, I'm just going to quote him here, Philip Lowe, has again warned Australians to be cautious of investing in cryptocurrencies, including so-called stablecoins that are often linked to sovereign currencies. He said that privately issued and backed money all too often ends in financial instability and losses for consumers. That's the official word on it from RBA boss. Royal Bank of Australia, that is, for those of you who are watching from outside Australia. It's clearly not a given thing.
The risk if you're running one of those MyCryptoWallets, right? You've set up this platform to let people buy cryptocurrencies, and you've got to honour your promises. So someone executes a trade on your platform, you've got to make sure you execute the trade very promptly, and you can get it for the price that you're saying you can.
Yeah.
And then if someone wants to withdraw money from your account, so they want to convert their crypto into real dollars, you've got to make sure you've got those real dollars. So you could have a real problem on your hands if people go, I want to withdraw my 10 Bitcoin, so pay me, $600,000 or something. They go, hang on, we don't have that lying around.
I think we cover this in more detail, because we obviously don't have enough answers here. I've got loads of questions and not enough answers.
But it's got to be something like that. They get into trouble because they don't actually have the ready money to be able to honour their obligations.
But I don't know why they're there at all. I thought the whole point of this is that it's decentralised, and so how do you get started with it? Where is your wallet? Where's your mattress? Where's your virtual mattress? To shove your whatever underneath.
Exactly. Well, we need to get someone on who's participating in this market.
And I imagine that's maybe where these guys are. They become like a broker, and then the brokers go under as such. And so, how does a broker go under? Why?
Well, it's showing how risky it is, and it's another reason I really wouldn't touch it, because I just don't understand it. And I think Warren Buffett got it right when he says, don't invest in anything you don't understand. You don't fully understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Just finally, I wanted to read about Gala. So it's owned by players. It's an Ethereum token that powers Gala Games. Gala is an Ethereum token that powers Gala Games, a platform for blockchain gaming. It's used as the medium of exchange between Gala game participants. For example, it can be used to pay for in-game items. Players get to truly own what they win in our games. If you earn or win a magical sword on the Gala game platform, it is yours. Your items and any inherited status is a verifiable asset on the blockchain. You can trade to another person or play within the game. So you could sell your magical sword for cryptocurrency on... Anyway, it's another world. But, I mean, I remember playing Dungeons & Dragons back in the 80s and, we didn't have the cryptocurrency, but I remember there was some sort of currency in the game. But we couldn't convert that to dollars if we wanted to. I mean, it would have been good if we could. But, we weren't playing against the whole world, I suppose. We were just playing at high school.
Actually, it does seem to be something that is serving the fans. You know, it's something where I think the creatives and everything, the artists, going back to NFTs a little bit more than the crypto, but like you say, it's connected, the blockchain thing, you know, so, and it seems to be some of the smart stuff that comes out. It's like, well, if you're interested in an NFT and purchasing one and buying this, that or the other, buy it because you like it, not because you're trying to make money. And that seems to be the thing. So there's a lot of artists and creators being supported by fans and people who are into what they're doing. And that is a really positive thing. I'm hoping that would be accentuated and encourage more creativity going forward. You know, that appears to be a really positive direction that this stuff is going in.
Yeah. I mean, if you need to get crypto to buy a magical sword in your online game, then all good. I have no problem with that. That's a legitimate use case. We're not going to argue about people's tastes or what people like to do because it's we believe in freedom.
Being frank and fearless, and we're investment inclusive.
Absolutely. Although
whatever you choose to invest in.
No investment advice given on
as
this.
As long as no one was harmed
on this program, other than be sensible, do your research, and probably don't invest in things you don't understand. And
have fun finding out, because it is a fascinating time to be around. Like, you know, seeing all this kind of stuff exploding. It's really, you know,
it could explode in your face.
It could explode in your face, but it's that thing of like, this is a really, and I guess this is the speed of everything with something like this. It happens in a very quick period of time, which normally wouldn't have happened. These kind of things didn't happen fast, you know.
It's happening faster than the regulators can catch up. So this has been a problem. Well, I don't know. It depends on whether it could be a positive thing, because in some circumstances it's benefited us. It has benefited the public. Uber. Because that happened faster than the regulators could act. Airbnb.
Yeah. That's right.
Exactly.
Everything. Like, but it's funny because the scooters out on the streets that.
But they're going to have to regulate those now that people are getting knocked over by scooters going 50 or 60 kilometres an hour. Yeah. I
mean, like, even so, I remember in the 90s, there were GoPeds. They were called GoPeds, exactly the same as a motorised scooter, and they were clamped down in the 90s because it was considered they were too dangerous, and they were, you know, the riders were going to need to have a driving licence, etc. And they'd have to go on the road, blah, blah, end of it. And then 30 years later, or 20 years later, they come back and they just flood the market and everyone's on it. It's like, okay, cool. You know, and I'm all for it because it's kind of fun. But it is, again, it's like flooding the market quickly with something that the authorities can't keep up with. And I'm actually quite a fan of that. You know, I like the fact that we have Uber, that we have ride-sharing services, that we have competition for the taxi industry, which wasn't always great, like traditionally important, but also, like, you know, wasn't always a fair deal that you got. So I think competition in all of these areas is really good.
I think I just got us off on a tangent with my digression on
Not like us, is it, Jim?
On how regulation can't keep up with technology. Tim Hughes, I think we better wrap up there. Any final thoughts before we go?
Yes, the cricket, Gene. Let's just get over. Let's rip the Band-Aid off and just.
I mean, Australia's in a commanding position. So
we were at day one on Wednesday, and it was a fabulous day. It was really. Interesting and sensational cricket. Ended with a tropical storm. So, we had a bit of everything. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a great week.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Tim, and thank
Thanks,
you for
Gene.
watching.
Thank you.